So, so you give this information to the sales leadership, and then what is your recommendation for how to turn that around, how to coach them?
Well, I like to say it's simple, but it's not really. It all falls back down to training. And that goes to my previous book, Selling at Combat Speed, things that I've learned in the military, things that I've passed down to folks that work for me. Is that, you know, almost all of our challenges that we have in our companies with our staff can be fixed and can be resolved with training and it's investment in your team members. But what's the first thing that gets cut when it's time for budgets? Is
Right.
training, investment in our people. And I remember several years ago, a good friend of mine here in the Valley in Phoenix owns a furniture store, big furniture, custom furniture store. And it was during the 2008 when the market was crashing, was in the recession, and he called me up and goes, Mike, I want you to come do some training for my salespeople. And I'm like, okay, Ty. I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. I said, but I'm kind of surprised. I said, this is kind of falling off everybody's scope. He goes, yeah, I know. He goes, none of my competitors are doing training. He goes, so I thought, why should I do something that none of my competitors are doing? And yeah, he gets it. It's about training. So whether you're listening to your live phone calls or you're doing your mystery shops, you have your surveys or wherever you're getting this information and you're seeing these opportunities, that's the area where you need to coach, and you need to coach specifically to those sales counselors. And on the other flip side of that, I mentioned a bunch of negative things about mystery shopping that we found, but we tell every one of our clients that, you're first of all, you're going to be shocked. You're going to be shocked when you hear these shops for the first time, because I've heard it over and over, like, we just talked about this last week. How come they're not
Yeah.
implementing, and how come their scores are so low, and like, how come they're not doing what we're training? So yeah, you're going to be shocked, and yeah, there's always going to be areas of opportunity. I said, but there's some positive things. There's always something positive that you can take out. I say always. There's been a handful of times when the shop's been so awful that I couldn't believe it. But make sure that you do put a positive spin on what you're doing. Whether it's the mystery shops, identify where you need to coach and train, and also when you're training, because at this point in time, we do ask our salespeople to wear multiple hats, and that's another pet peeve of mine. I think we do a lot of non-revenue generating activities. That's another webinar. So, but they are wearing multiple hats right now. And it is more difficult to sell and increase those ratios. But to be positive, encourage our people, build the morale, let them know they're appreciated. When somebody feels appreciated, they'll move heaven and earth to get the job done. So yeah, that's a leadership thing that I think that we can never do too much of.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the other point is that, 50% of our leads come in nights, weekends, and holidays. And if we invest in our professional full-time sales team, very few people invest in the front desk, and also in the manager on duty program. So, I have found recently that a lot of the leads aren't even getting past the front desk. The front desk person, for some reason, is saying things like, we're full. Or somebody asked specifically about medication management. It's like, no, we don't do that. We're independent living. Well, they were assisted living and they did medication management, and those calls aren't even getting to the sales team. So, you also wonder about, if 70 to 80% of the sales are lost within that first conversation with the professional salesperson, what you were saying before,
Yeah.
how many aren't even getting there? And I don't know whether you've ever done mystery shopping on the weekend, but I unfortunately have myself personally, and have been told that when I asked to speak to somebody in the marketing department or to get information, I was like, oh, honey, no one is ever here on the weekend. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, no one is ever here. It's like nobody but us girls are ever here on the weekend. So I think we're sometimes not even measuring the real lost opportunities, because they're kind of invisible.
And that's a great point. And I would probably say half of our clients will have us do phone shops on the weekends and at nights. So they'll alternate where one month we'll do business, next month we'll do nights, next month we'll do weekends. And you're absolutely right. I mean, it's I'll use the word disturbing again. It's disturbing in how that call and how that lead is actually handled after hours and on weekends. And in the training, whenever I'm doing any kind of training, if at all possible, I always recommend the client invite the concierge, that front desk person, and the EDs, especially the EDs as well, to come in. The concierge and early, maybe even just the first half of the day, because that's kind of where we front load the phone and how to handle phone calls and those kind of leads. But for the EDs to be there, we as an industry we say our EDs are sales managers. I don't go into too many communities where EDs act like sales managers. And no fault really to them because they are wearing a ton of different hats. But that's an accountability thing where leadership needs to, hold our EDs accountable for being a sales manager. And if they're going to be the sales manager, they should know the sales process as well. As a matter of fact, who's normally the backup to that sales counselor if a tour comes in? It's probably you would hope it'd be the ED. But that's another webinar for your backup teams as well. But yeah, I say everybody sells. Everybody needs to understand at least the very, very basics. And it starts with that front desk concierge.